The pipe organ at Boston's Trinity Church was playing Bach, but the only sound in my head was the quiet, digital beep of the hotel keycard from the night before the one, my fiancé, Julian, used to unlock my mother's door. The music swelled. Amayestits. The holy sound that vibrated in my bones. I stood at the altar. The heavy train of my couture gown pooled around my feet like liquid pearl. 300 faces stared back at me. A sea of Boston's elite friends. Family. Partners from Julian's law firm. All gathered to witness my union with Julian Reed. The afternoon sun streamed through the towering stained glass windows, igniting the dust motes into a glittering haze. It was, by all accounts, a perfect day, but my heart wasn't soaring with the music. It was a cold, heavy stone in my chest. A terrible, crushing knowledge that was my only true companion. How long had they been performing this grotesque play just for me? In the front pew, I could see her, my mother, Isabel. She was radiant in a custom-made silk gown, the color of champagne. Her posture impeccable. Her smile a perfect, practiced beam of maternal pride. She looked exactly as the mother of the bride should. 24 hours ago, I would have seen that smile and felt nothing but love. 24 hours ago, I was still Eliza, the daughter who believed in her perfect life. Julian squeezed my hand. His touch, which once felt like an anchor, now felt like a shackle. His blue eyes, the color of the Atlantic on a clear day, were warm with what I had, just yesterday, believed was unwavering devotion. You ready for this? Liza, he whispered, his voice resonating with that deep, easy confidence that had charmed a jury. His partners. And me. I turned to look at him. Really look at him. The sharp, aristocratic jawline I had traced on lazy Sunday mornings. The mouth that had promised me a lifetime of honesty. And I felt my entire world, the one that had shattered last night, reform into a single, sharp point of clarity. Oh, I'm ready, I whispered back, my voice surprisingly steady. The earthquake was happening inside, but the surface was calm, more ready than you'll ever know. 3 months earlier, I had been blissfully, offensively happy. My name is Eliza Davenport, and at 29, I was the walking embodiment of the life my parents had designed. I was a senior editor at a prestigious Boston publishing house, a graduate of Wellesley, and had just gotten engaged to Julian Reed, the undisputed golden boy of Beacon Hill. Our engagement was the stuff of local legend. Julian, 32 and impossibly handsome, was the youngest partner at his father's law firm. He proposed to me in the rare manuscripts room of the Boston Public Library, surrounded by the scent of old paper and leather, presenting a 3-carat cushion-cut diamond that was as flawless as our intended future. You've secured him. Eliza, my mother, Isabel, had gushed that night over champagne. The ring caught the light, and so did her eyes. The Reeds are one of the founding families. You have done exceptionally well. I should have heard it then. Not he's perfect for you, or you seem so happy, but you have done well. As if I had just closed a complex merger, not found the man I intended to love forever. My father, Reverend David Davenport, had been quieter but visibly pleased. He was a man whose entire life was built on faith, community, and the sanctity of traditional morals. He saw our union as a blessing, a joining of two good, strong families. Julian is a fine man. Elisa, he'd said, pulling me into his warm, steady hug. I see how he looks at you. I can see how much you love him. And that's all a father can pray for. His words, so pure and trusting, were the ones that would later become a knife in my heart. The wedding planning began immediately, which is to say, my mother's campaign began. Isabel threw herself into the preparations with the focus of a CEO planning a hostile takeover. She insisted on handling every single detail. "This is a mother's dream. Darling," she would say, her phone pressed to her ear as she negotiated with vendors. My preferences were treated as charming, but ultimately naive. Suggestions. When I suggested simple wildflowers, she booked Boston's most expensive florist for thousands of white orchids. When I showed her a picture of a simple, modern sheath dress, she shook her head sadly. "Elisa, you are marrying a Reed. You need impact." She, of course, picked the lavish, hand-beaded gown I was currently wearing. When I wanted a small jazz trio, she booked a full choir and the organist from the symphony. "Trust me, darling," she'd say, patting my hand with her perfectly manicured fingers. "Mother knows best." Julian, to my surprise, was not just amused by her intensity, he was an active participant. He would often stop by our family's brownstone in Back Bay, ostensibly to see me, but would end up in the drawing room with Isabel for hours. I'd hear their laughter from my home office. A low, intimate sound. He brought her wine, complimenting her taste. She would touch his arm when she laughed. "Your mother is a force of nature," he told me one night as we walked along the Charles River. "She's so vibrant, so devoted to making this perfect for us." "She's always been like that," I'd replied, leaning my head on his shoulder, mistaking my unease for gratitude. "She needs everything to be flawless. Just like you," he'd murmured, kissing my hair. I was so drowning in the illusion of love that I never questioned why he always seemed to find a reason to be near her, or why his gaze would linger on her a moment too long when she entered a room. The first crack in the facade appeared 6 weeks ago. I'd come home from work early, planning to surprise my parents. The house was quiet. My father, David, was at a diocesan conference. I let myself in and was hit with a smell that didn't belong. It wasn't my mother's usual Joe Malone candles. It was the rich, earthy scent of a Cuban cigar. An expensive, forbidden brand. A brand I knew Julian favored. I found my mother in the library, her back to me. She was flustered, her hair slightly mussed. She was vigorously wiping out a crystal ashtray, an ashtray that was still warm. "Elisa, darling, you're home," she'd said, her voice a shade too high. She quickly turned and ran a cloth over the already clean silver. "Smells like someone was celebrating," I said lightly, nodding toward the ashtray. "Was someone here?" "What, oh?" "Heavens, no. Just me." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "It must be. An old client of your father's. He stopped by this afternoon to drop off some papers. Dreadful a bit. Smoking." It was a clumsy lie. My father despised smoking and hadn't had clients in decades. But she was my mother. I chose to believe her. The second crack came 2 weeks later. Julian canceled our dinner, claiming a late-night deposition. I decided to surprise him at his Beacon Hill apartment. Bringing takeout, the doorman waved me up. I used my key, calling his name. The apartment was dark. "Julian, I brought food." "In the bedroom," he called out, his voice muffled. "Just tired. Liza, I think I'm coming down with something." Something felt off. In the kitchen, a wine glass sat by the sink, freshly rinsed but not dried, and on the rim, a perfect, damning crescent of lipstick. I recognized it instantly. Rouge Absolu 19B. A deep, bold red. My mother's signature color, the one she wore to every event, the one she called her armor. I never wore red. "Whose glass?" I asked, standing at his bedroom door. It was locked. "What?" "Oh, that. A colleague. Sarah. From the office. We had a client meeting here earlier. She left it." The lie was smoother this time. "Babe, I feel awful." Let's just talk tomorrow. I don't want you to catch this. He'd never locked his door to me. Not ever. But I was the good daughter. The trusting fiancé. I left the food, kissed the door, and went home, silencing the alarm bells screaming in my head. The final crack, the one that shattered everything, came a week before the wedding. We were at a final tasting. And I noticed it. A new, blinding sparkle on my mother's wrist as she reached for a glass of champagne. A delicate. Platinum tennis bracelet. Studded with diamonds. Mom. That's stunning. Is it new? Isabella beamed, extending her wrist. A little gift to myself. Darling, for all my hard work on this wedding, I deserved it. Don't you think? I froze. My blood turned to ice. I was with Julian 2 weeks ago at a private jeweler. He had been buying that exact bracelet. I'd admired it. He'd brushed me off, claiming it was a corporate gift for a very important client's wife. Someone I need to impress. I looked from the bracelet on her wrist to the smile on her face, and then to Julian, who was suddenly fascinated by the floral centerpiece, the cigar smoke, the lipstick, the bracelet. It wasn't a series of coincidences. It was a pattern. And yet, I still did nothing. I still chose the beautiful lie. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was just a stressed-out bride. I held that lie for 1 more week. I held it as she zipped me into my dress this morning. I held it as my father prepared to walk me down the aisle. I held it until last night, when the lie became so monstrous. It finally choked me. Now, standing at the altar, Julian's hand in mine, I looked at his handsome, lying face. I looked at my mother in the front pew, her face a mask of adoration. They were so confident, so sure of their victory. I'm ready, I whispered again. But this time, to myself, the organ music reached its crescendo. The ceremony was about to begin. The memory of the night before was a cold, sharp thing, and it was the only thing keeping me upright. It was the moment the fog of denial had finally, violently, evaporated. It was our rehearsal dinner. Julian and Isabel had been masters of discretion, sitting at opposite ends of the long table, playing their roles as devoted fiancé and proud mother. But I watched them. I watched the way his eyes found hers when he thought no one was looking. I watched the way she smiled into her wine glass after he'd given a toast. The cigar smoke, the lipstick, the diamond bracelet, they were a trilogy of betrayal playing on a loop in my mind. After the dinner, my mother had pulled me aside, her face a mask of loving concern. Darling, you seem so tense. You must be exhausted. Go home. Get your beauty sleep. Tomorrow is your big day. She'd kissed my cheek, her skin smelling of Chanel No. 5 and deceit. But I didn't go home. A new, cold instinct had taken root. I needed something real. Something to either prove my suspicions were the ravings of a stressed-out bride, or to confirm the monstrous truth. I remembered the locket, my grandmother's heirloom. A small, gold oval I'd wanted to pin to my bouquet. I'll keep it safe for you. Darling, Isabella had said weeks ago. It's in my jewelry box. I drove to my parents' house. It was dark, just as Isabel had planned. My father, David, was at the church, holding a final bachelor's planning meeting with his deacons, a flimsy excuse I now saw was orchestrated by my mother. She was supposed to be at home, meditating before the wedding, but her car wasn't in its usual spot. My heart hammered. Julian's car wasn't at his apartment. I had already checked. I knew, with a sickening certainty, where they were. I waited. I sat in my car across the street, in the dark, for almost an hour, feeling like a cheap detective in my own life. Just after 11 p.m., a taxi pulled up. My mother got out, her silk blouse slightly rumpled, her face flushed in the streetlight. She'd been dropped off a block away, She thought she was being clever. She went inside. I waited another 10 minutes, my breath fogging the glass. Before I got out, I still had my key. I let myself into the silent house. I didn't call for her. I went straight to her bedroom, to the jewelry box. The locket wasn't there. I tore through her drawers, my movements frantic, uncaring. Nothing. I went to her closet, digging through purses, hat boxes, and then I saw it, tucked in the back of her designer shoe collection. A small, leather-bound notebook. It was not her usual planner. It was black, anonymous, with a small embossed C on the cover, my grandmother's initial. My hands shook as I opened it. Her elegant, familiar script filled the first page. Dated 3 months ago. Just days after our engagement. Julian Reed is the man I should have married 30 years ago. He is everything David is not: powerful, ambitious, exciting. I settled for a life of quiet dignity in a rectory. And for what? To be the Reverend's wife. But maybe it's not too late. Maybe I deserve a taste of the life I was meant to have. My stomach twisted. I sank onto the floor of her closet, surrounded by her expensive shoes. And read on. My world unraveling with every word. He looks at me. Really looks at me. Not as a mother. Or a wife. But as a woman. When he compliments my dress, I feel seen. Today, he stayed after Eliza left for a fitting. We just talked. He kissed my hand when he left. I felt like I was 20 again. Page after page. It detailed the slow, calculated seduction. The first accidental touch in the kitchen. The first bottle of wine shared in the library, which led to the first kiss. He came to my car. Eliza was at a work dinner. He said he couldn't stop thinking about me. I know it's wrong. I know what this would do to Eliza. But when was the last time anyone chose me? Chosen me not out of duty, but out of pure, unadulterated want. Then came the entry I had been dreading. The one that confirmed the lipstick. The locked door. We made love at his apartment while Eliza was at her book club. He said I was more passionate, more woman, than anyone he'd ever known. I feel alive for the first time in 30 years. Then, the entry that showed a flicker of something human. The moment of doubt I'd outlined. Eliza tried on her gown today. She stood in front of the mirror. And for a second, I saw myself so young, so trusting. A wave of disgust washed over me. I almost told her. I almost ended it. But then Julian texted. He said he'd booked a room for the night before the wedding. My hand was shaking as I texted him back. Yes. It was a fleeting moment. A ghost of a conscience, quickly murdered by her own vanity. And then, the final, devastating entries. Julian says this wedding is just a formality. A business arrangement. Really. He has to marry someone like Eliza. From a good family. But he says his heart, his passion, belongs to me. After the wedding, we'll have to be more careful. But we will find a way. We'll have everything. The Reed name, the money, and each other. She'll never have to know. She'll never have to know. The last entry was from that very morning. Tonight, the night before the wedding, David will be at the church late. Julian is coming here. One last time before she becomes his wife. It's almost putik. The locket, I told Eliza I couldn't find it. I'm wearing it. He said it looked better on me. I closed the notebook. I sat in the silent darkness of her closet, the scent of her perfume hanging in the air, and I felt nothing. The grief was so profound, so absolute, that it had consumed itself, leaving behind a perfect, terrible vacuum. I was completely, utterly empty. Then, the emptiness began to fill. It filled with a cold, crystalline rage. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had pitied me. They had planned my wedding as a cover for their sordid, pathetic affair. They had stood at my engagement party, toasted my future, all while plotting to continue sleeping together in my marital home. My mother, who had insisted on white orchids for purity. Julian, who had wept as I read him my vows in private. I stood up, my movements stiff. I put the journal in my purse. I walked out of the closet, out of the bedroom, and down the stairs. I could hear the shower running in the master bathroom upstairs. She was washing him off her skin before facing my father. I walked out the front door. The old Eliza died in that closet. The one who cried, who forgave, who believed in the good of people. The new Eliza, the one who was left. I understood one thing with perfect clarity. Some betrayals don't deserve a quiet confrontation. They don't deserve tears. They deserve a stage. They deserve an audience. They deserved the exact, perfect, beautiful wedding my mother had planned, and I was going to give it to them. I didn't drive home. I drove to the Langham Hotel. My hands steady on the wheel. I walked to the front desk. My face a calm, placid mask. Checking in. I said to the clerk, "Reservation for Jessica." I'd made it online from the car. I paid in cash. The lie felt as natural as breathing. I was, after all, my mother's daughter. In the suite, I laid my only piece of evidence on the king-sized bed, the black leather journal. My first instinct was to document it. I needed copies. I needed proof. I pulled out my laptop, intending to scan each page with my phone and create a PDF. I plugged in my phone and set a glass of water on the desk. My hands were shaking. A fine, low-frequency tremor. As I reached for the journal, my elbow bumped the glass. Water cascaded across the desk, directly onto my laptop's keyboard. Aussisle. A pop. And the screen went black. "No," I whispered. "Appris mal." Panicked sound. "No. No. No." I grabbed the laptop, turning it over. Water dripping onto the expensive carpet. It was dead. Utterly dead. I threw it onto the bed in disgust. "Fine," I hissed, grabbing my phone. "Fine. I'll just take pictures. Pictures are enough." I fumbled with the phone, my fingers slick with water and sweat. It slipped from my grasp, hitting the hardwood floor by the desk with a sickening crack. I snatched it up. The screen was a spider web of shattered glass, the display flickering violently before dying. I stood in the silent, opulent hotel room with a dead laptop, a broken phone, and a single, analog journal. This was the misstep. The moment my righteous, cold fury gave way to hot, terrified panic. This wasn't a clean, cinematic revenge. It was messy. It was failing. What if I couldn't prove it? What if they just denied it? "She's a hysterical bride," they'd say. "She's just stressed." My mother's word against mine. And my mother, Isabel Davenport, was a pillar of the community. I was just her hysterical daughter. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my head in my hands. The guilt I'd been suppressing rushed in. Maybe I should just call it off. Tell everyone I'm sick. Handle this privately. The thought was a siren's call, promising a return to quiet, to peace. The old Eliza wanted to give in. Then I pictured their faces. Julian, with his patronizing smile. Isabel, with her triumphant, pitying eyes, wearing my grandmother's locket. "No," I said aloud. The rage returned. But this time it was smarter. It was focused. I needed proof that wasn't just a handwritten, deniable journal. I needed something cold, digital, and irrefutable. The hotel business center. I took the journal and went downstairs. The small, empty room had a desktop computer and a printer. I sat down, my mind racing. Think, Elisa. Think. How do I get proof? And then, it hit me. The wedding. For the past 3 months, Julian and I had been using a shared email account to coordinate with vendors, manage the guest list, and track RSVPs. Julian and Elisa Wedding at gmail.com. I'd never used it for anything personal. I prayed he was arrogant enough not to care. I typed in the password. Liza Reed. 2024. My future. Stolen Name. The inbox loaded. My heart was in my throat. It was mostly what I expected: confirmations from the florist, seating chart updates, a note from the organist. I went to the sent folder. Nothing. Trash. Nothing. He was clean. Wait. He was too clean. I went back to the inbox and searched. I searched his name. Julian Reed. The email popped up. It was from yesterday. The sender, the Newbury, Boston. My blood froze. The Newbury was a 5-star boutique hotel just blocks from my parents' house. The subject line: your confirmation. Room 812. I clicked it. Dear Mr. Reed, we are pleased to confirm your reservation for one night. Checking in. Checking out. I read the dates. It was for last night. The night he was supposed to be at his bachelor party. The night my mother had come home late. He'd booked a room. He'd used the wedding email to do it. The arrogance. The sheer, sloppy arrogance. My hands were flying. I searched again. Jewelry. An email from Cartier. An order confirmation from 2 weeks ago. Thank you for your purchase. Mr. Reed. I opened the attached digital receipt. 118K platinum and diamond tennis bracelet. 5 carats. The total made me feel sick. And at the bottom, the shipping address: Julian Reed. Escu. Reed and Harding LLP. It wasn't a corporate gift. It was a lover's. I printed both emails. The hotel confirmation. The bracelet receipt. I stared at the warm papers in my hand. This was better than the journal. This was the weapon. The journal was the motive. These were the fingerprints. My victory wouldn't be narrow. It would be absolute. I went back to the room and finally called my college roommate. Maya. She was a journalist with the Globe. Sharp and unsentimental. Maya. I said from the hotel phone. I need you at Trinity Church tomorrow. And I need you to bring a camera. Eliza, what's going on? It's your wedding day. Just be there. Maya. 3 p.m. Don't be a guest. Be a reporter. I hung up before she could argue. Throughout the night, as I sat staring at the evidence, my broken phone would light up with phantom flickers. Texts I couldn't read. But I knew what they said. They were from her. Sleep well. My beautiful bride. Thinking of you. Tomorrow will be perfect. I promise. At dawn, I drove to the church. The sun was just rising, painting the stained glass in hues of blood and gold. I found my father in his vestry, already in his robes, quietly praying. Elisa. Sweetheart, you're here so early. He stood, his face a mixture of joy and paternal nerves. It's bad luck for the Majorly. Dad. I cut him off. My voice was hollow. He saw my face, and his smile died. What is it? What's wrong? This was the part I dreaded. This was the moment of guilt. The point of no return. I was about to break this good, kind, trusting man. I was about to destroy his life, his marriage, his entire world. My hand, holding the papers, trembled. I have a choice. I thought, I can still walk away. We can just not go through with it. Elisa, you're scaring me. I looked at his gentle, worried eyes, and I thought of him sitting in the front pew, watching me marry a man who was sleeping with his wife. And I knew that silence was the crueler choice. I didn't hand him the journal. Not first. I handed him the printed emails. Read these. He fumbled for his glasses. What is this? The Newbury A Hotel? Elisa. I don't understand. Julian booked that room for last night. Dad, the night you were at the church. His face went pale. And this? A bracelet. This is a lot of money. Elisa. It's the bracelet Mom has been wearing. The one she said she bought for herself. He looked from the papers to my face. Confusion warring with a dawning. Terrible comprehension. He sank into his chair. No. He whispered. No. There's an explanation. He's helping her. It's a surprise for you. The denial was so strong, so pure. I had to kill it. I placed my mother's journal on the desk in front of him. And then there's this. I found it in her closet last night. While she was at that hotel with him. He opened it. I watched my father, my moral compass, my hero, read his wife's words. I watched his face crumble as he read about her envy, her lust, her contempt for the quiet life he had given her. I watched 30 years of a happy marriage burn to the ground in 5 minutes. He didn't make a sound. He just sat there, his whole body shaking. Finally, he closed the book, his hand covering his eyes. I knelt by his chair, the silk of my own wedding dress whispering against the stone floor. What? What are we going to do? He finally whispered, his voice broken. We're going to do exactly what they're expecting. I said, my voice cold and hard. You are going to walk me down that aisle. Dad, you are going to put my hand in his place, and I am going to make my vows. He looked at me, his eyes full of a pain I had never seen. Elisa. The scandal. The church. My God. Their scandal. I said, my voice iron. Their sin. Not ours. We are not the ones who should be ashamed. We are not the ones who should be hiding. He looked at the journal, at the receipts, and then at me. It took a long, shuddering breath. He stood up, straightening his robes. The broken man was gone. In his place was Reverend David Davenport. You're right, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Get your dress on. Elisa, we have a wedding to attend. My bridesmaids, oblivious and glowing, helped me into the gown. It felt less like a dress and more like armor. The hand-beaded pearls felt like tiny, cold stones against my skin. When they fastened the last button, I looked in the mirror. The old Eliza was gone. In her place was a woman I didn't recognize. Beautiful and terrible. Her eyes clear and cold. Where's your mother? My maid of honor asked, fussing with my veil. I thought she'd be here by now. She's probably welcoming the groom, I said. The knock came at 2:55 p.m. 5 minutes. The wedding coordinator chirped from the hall. My father stood. He offered me his arm, his hand steady. Are you ready? Eliza, he asked, his voice low. I'm ready, I said. We walked to the sanctuary doors. Through the small glass panes, I could see the church, packed to the rafters. 300 people. A sea of expectant faces. The choir was singing. The altar was a riot of white orchids, just as she'd wanted. And at the front, Julian. He looked magnificent. His tuxedo, perfectly tailored. A white rose in his lapel. He was smiling, chatting easily with his best man. The picture of a happy, devoted groom. And there, in the front pew, was my mother. Radiant, perfect. She caught my eye through the glass and blew me a delicate, tearful kiss. My grandmother's locket was fastened around her throat, glittering against her champagne-colored silk. The coordinator opened the doors. The music swelled. The triumphant first notes of the bridal chorus. Every single person stood, ready, my father whispered. We stepped inside. I felt the weight of 300 pairs of eyes. Cameras flashed. I saw Julian's face as he saw me. His smile widened. His eyes lit up with what anyone else would have called love. He looked, for all the world, like a man seeing his future. He didn't see the woman who had read his emails. He saw the pretty, docile prop for the next stage of his life. We reached the altar. My father, his face an unreadable mask of pastoral calm, placed my hand into Julian's anus. Take good care of her. Son, he said, his voice firm. I will. See her. Julian promised, squeezing my hand. Dearly beloved. The presiding bishop began, his voice echoing in the vaulted ceiling. We are gathered here today in the sight of God, to join this man, Julian, and this woman, Elisa, in holy matrimony. I let the familiar words wash over me. A liturgy of lies. I stood there, my hand in Julian's, feeling his thumb stroke my skin. He was so comfortable, so arrogant. He thought he had won. I saw him glance at the front pew. Just a flicker, and my mother's smile, if possible, became even brighter. We got through the readings, the homily, the bishop's charge. Then came the vows. Julian read. The bishop said, Do you take this woman, Elisa, to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, to love and to cherish, forsaking all others, so long as you both shall live? Julian turned to me, his blue eyes impossibly sincere. He looked deep into my soul, the way he had when he first said he loved me. His voice was strong, clear, and full of emotion. I do. The lie, so brazen and so public, almost made me gasp. It hung in the holy air. A profound blasphemy. Eliza Davenport. The bishop turned to me, his smile benign. Do you take this man, Julian, to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, to love and to cherish, forsaking all others, so long as you both shall live? This was it. The moment. The entire cathedral was silent. Waiting. Julian's hand was warm in mine. I could feel the pulse in his wrist. I paused. I let the silence stretch. Just a beat too long. I saw a flicker of confusion in Julian's eyes. In the front pew, my mother's perfect smile wavered. I turned my head, ever so slightly, toward the small microphone on the lectern. Actually, I said, my voice clear and steady, ringing through the cathedral's sound system. Before I answer that, I have something to say. The organist, about to play a soft underscore, froze. The air went still. 300 people stared. Julian's hand tightened on mine, his smile frozen. Elisa, what are you doing? He hissed, the charm vanishing. Is everything all right, my dear? The bishop asked, looking utterly lost. Everything is finally clear. Bishop, I said. I pulled my hand from Julian's grasp. Taking one step back, I turned to face the congregation. I want to thank you all for coming. I began, my voice amplified, calm, and carrying to the furthest pew. I know you're here to celebrate what you thought was a love story. Murmurs started to ripple. I saw Maya in the back, her camera up and rolling. But I've learned in the last 24 hours that this isn't a love story. It's a tragedy, and it's a farce. And I'm afraid I can't play my part. Elisa, stop this, Julian snarled, reaching for me. You're hysterical. Am I? I said, turning to him. Am I hysterical? Or did I just find out that my fiancé and my mother have been having an affair for the last 3 months? A collective, massive gasp sucked the air from the cathedral. It was a physical sound. People half rose from their pews. I saw Julian's parents. His father, a federal judge. His mother, a philanthropist. Stare at their son in pure horror. "She's lying," my mother shrieked. Jumping to her feet, "Elisa, you stop this nonsense. You're ruining everything. Sight down. Isabel." The command came from my father. He had risen from his seat. His voice wasn't a yell, but it was filled with 30 years of ministerial authority, and it cut through the chaos like a blade. My mother, stunned by his tone, crumpled back into her seat. "I'm not lying," I said, my voice ringing with truth. I reached into the small silk bag my maid of honor was holding, the bag I'd handed her just before we walked, and I pulled out my evidence, the printed papers. I know it's hard to believe. I didn't want to believe it, not even after I found my mother's journal, detailing every sordid meeting. More gasps. My mother let out a low wail. "Julian, you're a lawyer," I said, turning to him. He was sheet white, his eyes darting to the exits. "You know that handwritten evidence can be circumstantial. So I found better." I held up the first piece of paper. "This is a hotel confirmation. From the Newbury. Room 812. For last night. The night you were supposed to be at your bachelor party. And my mother was supposed to be at home, praying for my happiness." I saw Julian's father clutch his wife's arm. And then I held up the second receipt. "There's this. A receipt from Cartier. For a 5-carat diamond tennis bracelet. The one you told me was a corporate gift. But you bought it with our joint wedding account." I looked straight at my mother. "The same bracelet that is currently on your wrist." "Mom, the one you told me you bought for yourself." Every eye in the church swiveled to my mother's wrist. She instinctively tried to cover it. A gesture of pure, unadulterated guilt. The church erupted. It wasn't whispers, it was a roar of shock and disgust. Julian, cornered and exposed, did the one thing I expected from a coward. He looked past me, his eyes landing on my mother. His face, a pathetic mask of terror. "Isabel," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Isabel, say something." It was the final confirmation. He had implicated her completely. My mother just stared at him, her mouth opening and closing, no sound coming out. I looked back at the congregation. "I'm sorry to have brought you all here for a lie. The wedding is, obviously, off." I looked at Julian. "You can have her. You've clearly already paid for her." I turned to my father. He was standing, his face carved from stone, but his eyes were filled with a terrible, profound pride. I walked to him. "Dad," I whispered, "I'm sorry." "No, Elisa," he whispered back, kissing my forehead. "You did the right thing. You were brave. Go." I nodded. I turned from the altar, from the wreckage of my family, and I began to walk. I walked, alone, back down the long, orchid-lined aisle. The 300 guests parted from me as I passed, their faces a blur of pity, shock, and awe. I didn't look back at the chaos I'd left. I didn't look at my mother's sobs or Julian's ruined face. I just walked, my head high, the heavy, beautiful dress my mother had chosen, sweeping behind me like a battle standard. I pushed open the heavy church doors and stepped out into the bright, clean, autumn afternoon, and for the first time in my life, I was completely, terrifyingly, and gloriously free. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Maya's video went viral. Church reckoning trended for a week. The story was picked up by national news. The digital evidence was irrefutable. Julian's life imploded. He was fired from his father's firm within 24 hours. Judge Reed, in a public statement, disavowed his son's actions and offered a public apology to my father and me. Julian was disbarred 6 months later for moral turpitude and, as I learned, for using joint funds for his affair. My mother's fate was quieter, but just as complete. She was removed from every charity board, every committee, every social list she had spent her life climbing. She became a pariah. My father filed for divorce the next day. He left the church, sold the house, and moved to a small, quiet parish in Vermont, where he could heal. I haven't spoken to my mother since. I don't know if I ever will. As for me, I moved to New York. I got a job at a new publishing house. A bigger, better job. I have an apartment in Brooklyn that I love. 1 year later, I was asked to give the keynote speech at a women's leadership conference. I stood at that podium, looking out at 1,000 faces. A year ago, I said, I was standing in a different room, wearing a very different outfit, and I was faced with a choice, the comfortable lie or the devastating truth. We are taught, as women, to be peacemakers. We are taught to absorb pain, to manage egos, to keep smiling, no matter the cost. We are taught that our silence is a virtue. But I learned, I said, my voice strong, that truth is the ultimate act of self-love. Choosing your own dignity over someone else's comfort is the only choice. It's not revenge. It's liberation. The life I have now isn't the one I planned. It's better. It's real. I built it myself. From the ashes of their lies. If you've ever been in a situation where you had to choose between a comfortable lie and a painful truth, I want you to know you're not alone. If my story touched you, please like and share it. And subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the hardest moments. And tell me in the comments, what's one truth you've told that set you free?